also combined with quarterback Randy Wright and tight end Jeff Nault for the bounce pass play against Illinois, with Toon throwing the Nault for a touchdown.
Hello, friends. It's just a couple of guys. As our friend Laura would say, who are these guys? Well, former prosecutor in Kane County, my friend Pat Crimmins.
Hey, Ray, how are you?
Fine, Pat. Now in private practice in Geneva, Illinois. And yours truly, Ray Rogina, former mayor of St. Charles and a lifelong educator. Now well along into our second season, we try to engage national, regional, and local interviewees whose stories are engaging, topical, and noteworthy. And then sometimes we try simply to catch up with someone whose career is of interest or was of interest to many Fox Valley residents. Randy Wright is our guest today. Randy was a fine student at St. Charles High School. He played quarterback for 3 seasons at the University of Wisconsin and was drafted in 1984 and played 5 seasons for the Green Bay Packers. In retirement from pro football, he became a color commentator for college football on ESPN from 1995 to 2006. We'll have Randy up in a minute, but first, a word from one of our fine sponsors. You stay tuned. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. You face technology challenges every day that threaten to steal business, compromise data, and bring your business down. Without a good partner to help protect from phishing, ransomware, viruses, data breaches, employee turnover, and cybersecurity threats, your business is at risk of losing everything. TechWorks has been the trusted IT partner to Fox Valley businesses for over 20 years, keeping systems secure and providing extraordinary customer service, helping your business grow. Call TechWorks today at 630-482-2227 or visit www.techworks.com. That's TechWorks with a Q, TEQ Works, and see how TechWorks IT service can transform and secure your business. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. I'd like to say a few words about my friends at the Karis Group of Restaurants, one of our sponsors. I've been a frequent guest at all of their fine restaurants for years, one of which is Rookies, which has locations throughout the Fox Valley and beyond. My favorite dish at Rookies is the gyros plate with the saganaki appetizer. Oopa! My wife, she loves the Hall of Fame chicken sandwich. But I can honestly say that I've never had a bad meal there, regardless of whatever I've had to eat. The wings are out of this world, the salads are delicious, great burgers, tacos, all American specialties, and don't forget their pizza. And of course, you can wash this all down with one of their famous Mai Tais. Try them out. St. Charles, Geneva, Elgin, Hoffman Estates, Huntley, and Roselle. RookiesPub.com. I'll see you there.
All right, we're back with our guest today, Randy Wright, St. Charles legend, Packer legend, and of course, a Badger legend. Randy, we're really happy to have you here today. We really appreciate your time for being here. Ray and I are very excited to talk to you. What I wanted to start out with is a little bit about your background. And we all know that you came to St. Charles and you played football, but what happened before St. Charles? Your family grew up where?
Well, I grew up in Austin, Texas, born and raised in Austin, and lived there throughout my freshman year in high school, and then transferred after my freshman year in high school, went to a Catholic grade school for 8 years, and then went to the public high school as a freshman. Found out that summer my dad had been transferred. We were moving to Boston, Massachusetts for what was going to be 3 to 5 years. But it turned out being 9 months. So we moved to Boston, is where I went to high school as a sophomore. And then we moved to St. Charles as a junior and senior. So three different high schools in 3 years was a little tough at the time. But obviously loved St. Charles. Still, Texas is where I was born and raised. But if you really ask, St. Charles was what I felt was home for a long time.
Now, your accent, I would say, is part St. Charles, part Texas, or what would you say?
Most people, it's been a long time since I lived in Texas. When I go back down to Texas, I'll pick it up a little bit, and I get down there. Still have 2 brothers that live there. But most people, when I tell them that I'm, from St. Charles or went to high school in St. Charles, they'll look at me and ask, "You didn't live your whole life there." So I would say there's still a Texas part of it for sure.
Yeah. And then Wisconsin, of course, can affect everybody's accent a little bit.
Wisconsin can affect everybody in a lot of different ways. That's
now,
just
I have some theories here, but you tell the story. How is it that you chose St. Charles? Did your dad specifically work in St. Charles? Or was it a situation where you picked St. Charles because of the pro-style offense, or what was the reason?
Those were things that were just really benefits that came after the fact. And that's kind of how my entire career on the field, off the field has really gone. And we were moving from Boston when my dad was working for Houghton Mifflin Book Publishing Company at the time. And they had an office in Geneva.
Right.
So we knew we were going to be in either the St. Charles, Batavia, Geneva area. I actually reached out to both football coaches at St. Charles, which was Leo Vitale, and Geneva High School, which was Jerry Oxtetter, I believe.
Okay.
And we just wound up finding a house in St. Charles. And therefore, obviously, that's where we moved and where we went to school. But it totally came down to where we found the house, and it happened to be in St. Charles.
I always was of the opinion that it was because of Mark Vitale and Leo Vitale and Mark's success and going off to Purdue and such.
It factored in after the fact that Leo was a fabulous coach for me, and obviously had Mark and had tutored Mark and brought him along not only as a father but as a coach. And I got to know Mark fairly well when I was playing, because he was just going into the NFL with the Chiefs. Right. Worked out with him some. Those were just benefits that gained with me going into St. Charles. But I was very, very fortunate. But at the time, also, Geneva had an outstanding football program. In fact, I think they still do. I think they've had a lot of success in the last several years. So I don't think I could have gone wrong with either one of them. Obviously, I felt very much at home in St. Charles, so that was great.
And back then, weren't they in the same conference, Geneva and St. Charles?
They were not in the same conference, because St. Charles was a bigger school. Geneva was in the conference, I think, with Cayman.
Little seven.
Little seven.
Okay.
Yeah,
so,
we were still the upstate 8 or whatever it was.
Right.
So we'll bring in the football source and Ray when we need questions like that.
That's
so
right.
We'll
Ray is our statistician. Yes. Now, so you only played high school football for St. Charles for 2 years, is that right?
Correct. Just 2
so
years.
This idea that you're St. Charles High School and everything else, you've got a little Roger Ford in you, because you only spent a couple of years there, but you have the reputation of being a St. Charles kid. Tell us a little bit about those teams in St. Charles and your success there.
When I moved in as a sophomore, junior, I didn't really know, anybody. So as it turned out, good athletes, pretty good senior class. And Pat, you and I were both in the junior class at that time. But the senior class had some good leaders, some real good athletes, the Dennis Wolford, some of those others that turned out to be very good. I think our record that year, I think we were 5-4, 4-5. I'm not sure which one it was. But then the next year, my senior year, we had a fabulous junior class. Yeah. And in fact, I think there were only 5 or 6 seniors that started that year. And we had a great junior class that stepped up and played real well. I got hurt that year and wound up separating my shoulder and missed 2.5 games. And went on, and we had a real good season that year. And the year after that, after I was gone, all those juniors became seniors, and they dominated. I think they were 8-1 or 9-0 that year. But I think we were 7-2 my senior year with me missing 2.5 games.
And obviously, it was a pro-style offense, isn't that right?
It was. It was an I offense, but it wasn't today's pro style where it's all spread and everything back in those days. But it was definitely a pass-oriented offense. Both years I was there.
And who were some of your go-tos?
Oh man, my junior year, our receivers were Dennis Wolford and Mike Leisman. and good guys, good receivers, especially, coming in when I was playing ball out in Boston as a sophomore. We did not have a great team, didn't have a lot of athletes on that team. So coming into a school like St. Charles, where I was happy to get back to Illinois, which was more like a Texas style of football than the East Coast. East Coast is hockey and baseball. So I was happy to get back a little more into the heartland of good high school football. And then my senior year, Bill Arloff was an outstanding receiver for me. Ken Mitchell, who played both ways, went on and played in college himself, was a fabulous tight end. And we had Tony Grossglag in the backfield. We had a good team my senior year, even though we only had 5, 6, 7 seniors on the team. We had some good skilled players. I was really fortunate to benefit from that.
Now, tell us a little bit about, I think Ray's going to get into Notre Dame and Wisconsin, but you were recruited fairly heavily. I don't know if your recruitment would compare to what they do today and, huddle videos and all that kind of stuff. But I do remember Dan Devine coming to our high school, and I saw him in the lunchroom. What was it like to be a recruited athlete?
It was enjoyable. It was fabulous. It was kind of the thing you strive for. And when you achieve that aspect of it, it was one of the things that lived up to what you thought. A lot of pressure to make a decision on what's the right decision, what's not. And from my aspect, not to get the cart ahead of the horse, but you talked about Notre Dame, you talked about Wisconsin. I went to Notre Dame as a freshman out of high school and then transferred after that freshman year to Wisconsin. So when you look at, the Catholic grade school I went to, the high school in Texas, the high school in Boston, St. Charles 2 years, Notre Dame 1 year, Wisconsin, it's 5 different schools in 6 years in 5 different states.
Right.
There was a lot of moving around, but with being recruited at the time, there wasn't the huddle, there wasn't the video. Coaches would go, there really weren't even rankings that came out. So coaches would go see you and they would scout your game film, of which Coach Vitale did a fabulous job of sending it out to other schools and getting it out to coaches. And then coaches would send scouts to come watch you play. And actually, ironically, the way Notre Dame got on how I got on their list was their recruiting coach for this area was recruiting a kid my junior year out of West Aurora. Oh. And he went to go talk to the West Aurora coach. And they had a kid that was a senior that year, so a year ahead of us, Pat. And it wasn't a kid that the coach at West Aurora thought was going to be able to go play and had some off the field stuff, and it's not important. But what he did say, and I heard this story after the fact, was the kid on my team is not a kid that is going to be Notre Dame material, and he's not going to be a good fit. But if you're interested in a kid, you need to go look at the St. Charles quarterback.
Nice.
That's how they first got onto it. And with me only being in St. Charles for 2 years and having been born and raised in Texas, when you're in Texas back at that time, the only thing you hear about the Big Ten is Michigan, Ohio State. I mean, they dominated it like back in those days where 1 or 2 or 3 schools dominated a conference. And when you're Catholic and you're a quarterback and Notre Dame offers you a scholarship, you just kind of go. You don't ask, you just go. And that was a big part of me going to Notre Dame.
And plus, you spent some time in Boston, so you kind of knew a little bit about the glory of it all. Just back to St. Charles for a little bit. You obviously became the class president, and St. Charles treated you good, I think, both in terms of the football and academically, and you certainly made a lot of friends, wouldn't you say?
And that's one reason, that's a big reason why I have always felt St. Charles more home to me than any place else. My parents continued to live there for many years. I went back there throughout all of my college days. I went back there and spent all the summers there. And because of the friends that I made, yourself, obviously one of them, Ray, one of my teachers, and have stayed in touch for 40 some years afterwards. Because of that, St. Charles does feel more to home even than Texas does in many ways.
Yeah, St. Charles was my 8th move.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, my dad was the manager of the Coke plant, and so we were Coca-Cola. We were all over the place. So I was so tired of moving at that point in time.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, 4th grade, and then of course with the schools, we went to all the different schools. Remember, and we were the second graduating class out of the new building.
Right.
I had gone through like 4 schools before we got there. So
I didn't realize that there are that many at that aspect, but I do remember the first year I moved in was the first year the new high school opened, which
Right.
would have made us the second graduating class, being our junior year.
Right. So you had it easy. We were suffering over at Thompson, back in the day.
That's true.
Ray
You
wants
guys,
to talk to you a little bit about the Big Ten and Notre Dame and Wisconsin. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, Pat set Notre Dame up pretty well, and I'll get to that in a second. But I do have one question going back to your high school days. How was I can't help but ask this question? How was Pat as a classmate?
Pat was a fabulous classmate because
Really?
he was a better classmate than a student, I'm sure, because you saw him from the student aspect.
Actually, I would think the opposite. I thought he was a fine student, but I'm not sure I liked his personality. But he was a fine student. I just thought I'd get your opinion on the matter.
It was Pat is a great example of when people have asked me, do you miss playing ball? And this could be a 30-minute conversation in itself. One of the things that I miss the most is the camaraderie. It is, the locker room, is being with the same group of guys. And that's one reason why college football is so much more fun than the NFL, because you have the same guys. Patrick is a great example of friends that I had that were not involved in football. And that's really what made St. Charles so special. Is it was probably the one place where I had so many friends that were not athletes. I had good friends that were athletes, good friends that were teammates, but I had a lot of friends in our clique or our group, or however you want to call it, that were not athletes and were not teammates. And I think that speaks to the character they have. And Patrick fits into that, because everybody knows Patrick was not an athlete. So you look at that.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because he likes to paint that picture sometimes that he really was. And
I dispute this a little bit. I tried out for a quarterback against Tim Wade, and they were impressed, but it didn't work out. But
yeah, those things happen, and those things happen. I don't remember that, but I'll take your word.
No, that was like in 7th grade or something. That was
before my time. I got you.
Let's get to college here, and you brought up Notre Dame, and of course you mentioned your Catholic upbringing as far as elementary school is concerned. I suppose I could say was Notre Dame there only you're a quarterback, you're a good quarterback, you're an excellent quarterback, and is Notre Dame there? Is it the mystique? Was it divine? What beside the fact that you implied, well, I think I just need to go there, and you felt good about it. What else attracted you to Notre Dame?
I think, Ray, that pretty much sums it up. It wasn't so much the coach at all. And coaches will tell you, don't ever go to a college because of the coach. Coaches can leave, go because of the school, go because of the academics, go because of the tradition, the program. And I think that's true to a degree, although coaches certainly have a huge influence on it. But I didn't know much about Big Ten schools. Michigan and Ohio State had dominated back in the 70s when I was coming out. Most of the other Big Ten schools, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Northwestern, Illinois, a lot of the ones that were recruiting me in that area had losing programs because Michigan and Ohio State were so good. Purdue was about the only one that was really starting to come up at that time. So the tradition, the mystique of Notre Dame, the Catholicism of where I was, my mom was a huge fan of going there. So I think you got, I don't want to say you got caught up in that, but that certainly had a huge influence. And up until I got there, never regretted that was the choice, that was the play. And ironically, we talked earlier about how things just kind of have seemed to fall in place for me with no fault of my own, just kind of lucking into certain things. If I hadn't gone to Notre Dame, I would have gone to Michigan. And if I had gone to Michigan and it hadn't worked out like it did at Notre Dame, I could not have transferred in the Big Ten and stayed on scholarship, because they had a rule at that time. You couldn't transfer from one Big Ten school to another and stay on scholarship. So the fact that I went to Notre Dame and then decided to transfer opened up all the rest of the Big Ten schools for me to be able to transfer to and still be on scholarship. So one of those just freaky lucky things I fell into.
All right, and I guess this is a delicate question I'll ask, but I'm going to ask it. And obviously back in the day we talked about it a little bit over breakfast a few different times. But for our audience, what did not happen at Notre Dame that prompted the transfer?
I'll tell you exactly the situation there. I came in with one of two quarterbacks in my year, and the only other quarterbacks on the roster were all going to be seniors. So you had three seniors and two freshmen, and I was one of the two freshmen. I was the number one quarterback of the two of us throughout that fall. But they went out, Notre Dame that year had gone out and recruited Blair Keel. They recruited another very highly sought after quarterback that were, in fact, the two quarterbacks that they brought in the year after me were top 5 in the country. So they had two of them coming in there. And they basically said, you're not ever going to play. You know, the seniors are now gone. Are going to be seniors. They were all juniors. They were going to be seniors. The two freshmen we just recruited are both, in our opinion, clearly better than you, and you're just never going to play. So in not quite as blatant a statement, they basically said, we're just not going to pass you on your physical. We're going to get the medical aspect of it. You'll still be on scholarship, but you won't ever be able to play. So the writing was very clear. And if you want to go transfer somewhere, in fact, Dan Devine told me, if you want to go transfer somewhere else, we'll write you a letter of recommendation, and you're a good kid and you were highly recruited, and go play somewhere else and we'll get the scholarship back, but you'll be able to have a chance to play, and you're never going to have that here.
Now, you went to Wisconsin, but I have to ask the question, were there other options as far as other schools were concerned that you each gave a passing thought to?
You know, there were. I looked at Michigan again. And I looked at Wisconsin had recruited me very heavily, and I had liked Wisconsin a lot, even though they weren't ahead of Wisconsin was not ahead of Michigan coming out of high school. They were a very close third or fourth in there. And I think at that time, Michigan, again, a dominant program, much like Notre Dame, I was a little more gun shy to transfer to a Michigan or transfer to a Purdue or an Iowa. All three of those schools were very much in the picture. I was a little more hesitant to transfer to a Michigan because of what had happened to me at Notre Dame. Because, you know, if it happened here, it could happen at another big national program like Michigan. So I felt more comfortable going to a program like a Wisconsin, Illinois, Iowa, Purdue, where I didn't think that would happen as likely. So that's why I chose Wisconsin.
All right, so you went to Wisconsin, and at the 81 season, you were the backup, but the team did pretty well. It was 6-3 in the Big Ten, 7-5 overall, and you got invited to the Garden State Bowl, Giant Stadium in New Jersey, and lost to those Volunteers from Tennessee. But that must have been a transition year for you, because then 82 and 83 gangbusters. I wrote this down: 4,500 yards of passing and 32 touchdowns. That's not too shabby, sir. Not too shabby at all. And good seasons as far as the Big Ten and overall is concerned. We'll keep the Tune game aside. We'll talk about that separately. But some other great Wisconsin memories that you had as the number one quarterback your junior and senior year.
You know, it really starts my sophomore year, because you mentioned the transition year for me. We had a very good team. We beat Michigan when they were number one in the country. We beat Ohio State. We beat Purdue. It was the first time that Wisconsin had ever done that. And I was our backup quarterback. I got hurt in training camp, and that set me back a little bit. And then when you beat Michigan the first game of the year, when they're number one,
right,
the starting quarterback is going to stay the starting quarterback.
Right.
So I went through that year as a backup mostly, but got playing time towards the end of the year when the team started to struggle. And the last we had to win that game to go to the Garden State Bowl. And
the Paul Bunyan axe was on the line too. Is that right?
Yeah, right. That's right. I forget your college knowledge is outstanding about all those little irrelevant, useless facts, but it's good to know.
Thank you. Pat reminds me of that all the time.
Yes,
absolutely. So anyway, we're playing Minnesota the last game of the year, and I'm the backup. We're behind by, I think, 3 or 4 points. I don't remember what it was. 2 minutes to go in the game, and they put me in. And because I was a better thrower than the other quarterback was, and we came down the field, and we wound up scoring and scored a touchdown, won the game, went to the Garden State Bowl. If we hadn't won that game, you don't go. And I often look back and say, from when I went on that field in that game, I looked at the clock and there was 1:54 on the clock. We were on our own 20-yard line. We came down the field and we scored. And when we scored, I looked up and there was 1:05 on the clock. 49 seconds changed my life forever. And
nice.
We went into the Garden State Bowl. I played the second half. We were behind. I played well, and then became the starter after that. But I often look back at that 49 seconds from 154 to 106 or 105, whatever it was.
Your junior year, you also went to a bowl game. You went to Independence Bowl down in Shreveport against Kansas State. You kicked their butt.
Your first bowl game, Wisconsin won, because we got beat the year before, the Garden State Bowl, but the Independence Bowl in '82 was the first bowl game Wisconsin won. And one of the things I take a lot of pride in is being the quarterback of that team that year and winning that bowl game for the first one for Wisconsin. That was a big deal at the time, and it's something I take a lot of pride in.
Who are some of your favorite teammates at Wisconsin, both junior and senior year?
Oh my gosh, so many friends I've stayed in touch with, so many people that I was teammates with. I mean, obviously 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐧𝐠 was what probably one of the biggest names to come out of Wisconsin, but Tim Straka, Matt Vandenboom, who was a free safety for us that played in the NFL a couple of years till concussions forced him to retire. John Jostin, who actually is a Illinois kid, Arlington Heights kid, who was a quarterback that when I started and came in, he transferred over and played free safety and had a fabulous career for 2 years as a free safety. And we've stayed in touch for many years. In fact, he does a lot of business with us. So, you know, those are names that year. John Williams, Troy King, two of our running backs my junior year. So most of my friends from Wisconsin were a year ahead of me eligibility wise. When I was the junior starting my first year, they were all seniors because that was my high school class. And you know, Mark Subak, one of our linemen. So a lot of names like that, a lot of old names like that have some of them you haven't thought about in a while, some of them you think about all the time.
And I mentioned earlier, and we talked offline, I told you I was present for this, but the Al-Toon game, as they say, the Toon game, seems to be one of the major games in Wisconsin football lore as one that stands out. And I have to tell you, it certainly caught me by surprise. People can go online on YouTube and watch the play. It's pretty simple as far as finding it. But I want you to take our audience through that, only because it to this day still amazes me. I really want you to tell me, was it all planned that way, or what happened? Set the stage. You're down to the Illini in the fourth quarter late. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's known as the bounce pass play in the bounce pass game. And it is quarterback takes a snap, steps back, throws a lateral to Al-Toon, who was the middleman in the trio there. And he's behind me. So when I throw it, I actually skip the ball off the ground and it bounces up into his midsection. And it looks like an incomplete pass to the people on defense because they can't see the angle. They relax, they see the incompletion, they let up, and you have a tight end that kind of stalk blocks and then releases. So Al then, as he catches the lateral off the ground, throws the ball down the field, and hence in this play, that's what happened. So I take it, we called it a skip pass. And that was how that was our terminology. The media all called it the bounce pass. And that's what it's become known as, is the bounce pass game. So the way we came about with that, it just to finish up on that. So Al completes the ball down the field to our tight end, 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐽𝐴, scores the touchdown. We go up in the game 28-26.
Correct.
With a minute to go or something.
Right.
We missed the extra point. And Illinois now gets the ball after the kickoff with less than a minute to go. And Tony Eason at quarterback and came down and wound up kicking a 50-yard field goal at the end of the game to win the game. So a great college football game. The way we came up with that play was we'd always use new balls on Monday. And the NCAA would let you take new balls on Monday, and those were the game balls for Saturday. So when you get a new ball, it's slick and it's hard to grip, it's hard to hold. So we would, as quarterbacks on Monday and Tuesday of practice, we would warm up on the sideline and we would bounce the ball off the turf because the turf would take the newness off the ball. So we're doing that. I mean, every Monday, every Tuesday, every Wednesday for 6, 8, 10 weeks. I mean, this is something that's very commonly done by a lot of quarterbacks throughout. And our coaches see that every time you're throwing that ball on AstroTurf, it bounces up almost perfect. So they implemented the play, and that's how it was created on our end, and that's how the concept came about. And I honestly, my job was the easiest job, because if you just throw the ball and you throw it with the nose up and it's a spiral, it's going to bounce directly at where you want it to 99% of the time.
Well, all I can say is it's probably the most exciting game I've ever attended in college football. And it certainly, we were very happy for you at the time that it worked out. I guess if we're talking about Illinois fans, we're happy for the Illini as well. And I'll leave it at that. We're going to take a break.
Ray, we're going to change the
Pat.
plan a little bit. We're going to change up the plan a bit. Where'd Randy go? There's Randy.
I'm sorry. Okay, change the plan.
Yeah, Randy, you remember the show This Is Your Life? We thought we'd bring a surprise guest on for you, and you mentioned his name earlier today, and I stay in touch with him a little bit on Facebook. Ken Mitchell is here.
Oh my gosh!
Yes, and we thought you guys would enjoy catching up. Where is Ken?
Let's try this.
There he is. There he is. He still looks good, doesn't he?
You know what?
What's up, Randy?
Ken, you look good. You look the same. You sound exactly the same.
Oh man,
So,
I don't know if that's good or bad.
it's great to see you.
How you been? I swear, I told Pat, I don't think I've talked to you since high school, for God's sakes, almost.
You know what? We probably haven't talked since high school. I know we've communicated through Facebook a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
When Tony passed, and
Yes, he did.
was
Yes,
gone.
he did.
So
Yeah, that was a tough thing there. You know, we're not getting any younger kids, huh?
No, man.
Well, Randy just told the audience that I was never an athlete, so I feel as though I'm probably the next to go. So I got to start getting.
Come on now. You know, but something that you had mentioned to me, Pat, about think of a story about, you know, when we were in high school.
Right.
And it's funny, it's kind of cool. The one that comes up to me that I think of is, you know, Randy wasn't there our sophomore year. Randy moved in your junior year, right, Randy?
Right, correct.
Okay, well, we had a different quarterback before you got there. His name was, I think, Tim Wade. Long story short, Ken thought he was going to be the quarterback coming up. Me. And we were away in vacation. Tony used to go to vacation with us all the time in Florida. And we would be getting calls from Tony's dad. Hey, Ken, I got some bad news for you. We got a new quarterback that just moved into town, some high school All-American. And if you knew anything about Tony, you know that he loved to rib people. He just loved to just poke at people. Yeah. And he used to always tell me, so Ken, are you going to, I guess you're not going to be the quarterback now, Ken? Is that what I'm hearing? Because the minute I came back, you know, I still thought, oh, I'm going to be the quarterback. Until I saw you throw the ball one time. I said, okay, Ken's going to have to find another position to play.
You know, I've never heard you say that story, but I'm darn glad that you changed to tight end, because you were a huge part of our throwing game and success for a couple of years.
We had a ball with that. That was good time.
But
I'll never forget that. I was on tap that I thought, I'm going to try out for quarterback until you came. And it was just, I'm thankful that you did. But it was, yeah, it's funny how and I never heard the end of that from Tony Grossgoy, guys.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, he used to poke me, Ken, you going to be the quarterback I hear, maybe?
I never heard that.
If it weren't for Ken Mitchell, Bill Arloff never would have been open, right?
You know, that's a good way to look at it.
Sure. Yeah. Speaking of him, gosh, I haven't seen him in a while.
You know, there's a name that I've tried to be in touch with and is really falling off the face, and I've not been successful being in touch with him or anything about Bill, but I'm not so sure that, in fact, Ken won't say this himself, but I do remember I was concerned my senior year when I got hurt and I was out for a couple of games.
Yeah.
You know, you want to go play in college, much like you did, and you look at your all conference stuff. Ken was one of only 3 players in the entire conference that year that was unanimous all conference. And you won't say
I had a moment.
But you helped me get there, and you got there yourself, and
Yeah, I did.
it was a great honor. So
It's funny when people ask us, obviously, when anybody asks anybody about your college or your high school or football career, I immediately go to you, obviously, because you're the guy that made it all the way. So I was like, well, you may have heard of Randy Wright. And people go, yeah, I remember him. So you've always given us that. I mean, it's neat that you made a career out of that. That's amazing. And I'm very happy for you.
I appreciate it. And you had a lot to do with that in high school, as we've already talked about. So now Pat had nothing to do with that in high school.
Yeah, Pat may not have
nothing
much
to do about it.
Well, wait a second now. Ken Mitchell, when he came into town, he told me how great he was, and I said, "Who are you?"
I honestly don't remember that, Pat.
We were sitting next to each other in Ray Rogina's business law class, and I
Well,
said,
we
"Who
did
is
do that.
who is this guy? He thinks he's so great." And then
Well, I mean, I knew I was going to be a force my senior. I mean, the varsity.
right.
Come on. I didn't know what we were going to have a high school All-American move into town to take my quarterback spot. That I did not know.
The funny thing is, if you listen to both these guys, you would never guess they were from St. Charles, Illinois. I mean, that's you guys sound like you're Alabama football, for God's sake.
What I do remember about Ken is disappointed as he may let on that he wasn't the quarterback at the time that I was there. I do remember he dated the absolute prettiest girl in the school. That everybody remembers.
Oh,
Now,
what?
That's why I was going to suggest that you guys haven't talked since high school because of a girl. I was throwing that out.
Not even. No.
See,
Ray,
Ray,
that's funny.
these two guys took all the girls, and Pat, of course, wasn't able to. I was just hanging around.
I wasn't there. I obviously do not care about any of that. I'm glad to see that all three of you turned out well, and that's all I have to say. I'm very proud of all three of you, as you know. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
We gotta take a short break. We come back. We want to talk to Randy about draft day 1984 and his 5 years with the Green Bay Packers. You stay tuned.
At McNally Heating and Cooling, we understand that customer satisfaction starts with arriving at your home on time. Your service technician will apply the same attention to detail and quality workmanship to every job, large or small. We offer upfront, honest pricing, and we'll make sure the job gets done right from start to finish. From furnace and air conditioning service, minor repairs, or total equipment replacement, we do it all. Give us a call or find us online and let the luck of the Irish work for you.
All right, we're back after that St. Charles High School reunion. Always good to see the class of 1979 get together and talk peaceably amongst each other. And sadly, Roger Ford wasn't here because ordinarily he would be at any 1979 gathering, but we couldn't get him here. Let's talk a little bit about the Green Bay Packers and the whole draft concept. Obviously, hardly anybody's ever been drafted by a pro football team. So tell us a little bit about after Wisconsin and how the draft worked and what led up to that.
At the time, USFL was a viable alternative, and a lot of big names were playing in the USFL. I had gotten drafted in the USFL. Didn't think it was a good fit. I think Memphis was the team that had drafted me. So not a great fit, not where I wanted to go. I had been projected to be a low 4th to 6th round draft pick in the NFL. And back then with 28 teams, fewer draft picks. There were no compensatory picks or anything like that. So it was pure, 28 teams going down the list. Wound up being a 6th round pick. So never heard from Green Bay. I worked out for their offensive coordinator at the University of Wisconsin one day for 20 minutes. That was all I ever heard from Green Bay. Yeah. And had heard far more from other teams, but got the call late afternoon, 6th round. Green Bay had drafted me, and I was thrilled to go there. It was a fabulous fit for me, and loved the fact that that's where I was going. It turned out to be a good fit their quarterback was a veteran. He had been around. The offensive coordinator really liked me, and he was the one that had worked me out, actually. So it's just a good fit all the way around, and really a thrilling day to be drafted in the NFL.
Sure. Now, were you actually at the draft, or was it you were at home? You took a phone call. How did it work?
I was at home, and no cell phones, no anything like that.
Right.
And I don't even know back then. I certainly wasn't invited, but I don't know if they even had where they brought the first round picks out to the NFL. I wasn't going to be one, so I wouldn't have been invited out there. But I was at home,
Yeah.
and got the call. My mom answered the phone, and she just looked at me. She said, "It's Green Bay," and I thought, "Oh, Green Bay? I haven't even talked to them." And
Right.
the GM was on the phone, and I remember exactly what he said. He said, "Are you still available, or have you signed with the USFL?" I said, "No, I'm still available." And he goes, "No, you're not. We just drafted you in the 6th round." And I was like,
Nice.
"Great." And yeah, so that was it.
Were you
And
your
who
own
was the-
agent, Randy?
My agent was a gentleman named Rick Schaefer out of the Boston area, and he was with a company that had represented Andy North. And Andy North, a two-time U.S. Open PGA golfer, dear friend of mine, big Wisconsin guy, dear friend of mine, been friend for 45 years now. He hooked us up, and that's where I went.
Wow. And Andy North is a great commentator.
Oh, he's fabulous.
Yeah.
He's
Now, who was coaching the Packers back then?
Forrest Gregg. It was his
Forrest
first
Gregg.
year. It was his first year there.
And you hadn't spoken with him prior to the draft at all. Is that right?
The only time I had ever spoken to him before the draft was I had to go to Green Bay to do my physical because they were the team that watched the University of Wisconsin was in their region. So I went to there because they had to have me in, and I saw him in the hallway, and he was a first-year head coach that just got the job, and he walked by me like he didn't have two flips who I was and didn't care who I was. It's like we bring these guys in all the time. So yeah, that was the only time I ever talked to him.
Wow, neat. Now, so eventually training camp starts. What were you nervous about that whole concept? How'd that go?
You're nervous more because of the unknown. You don't know what to expect. You hear a lot about the NFL and et cetera, and you some of them are myths, but some of it's true. So you really don't know what to expect. But I was totally committed. I was totally ready to get up there and play. I thought, since I'd only played for 2 years in college, that I would develop more and my potential was more ahead of me instead of having played 4 years in college and kind of had reached your peak.
Yeah.
I had a very good training camp the first year. And one of the things that I am most proud of, there are a couple, there are 2 or 3 things that really stick out. And one of those 2 or 3 is the fact that I was never third team. From the very beginning, after a week of practice, I was a number 2 quarterback. And throughout my career, I was either number 1 or number 2 throughout my whole career.
When did you realize the difference between college and pro football?
It happens pretty quick. It was when the regular season, my rookie year, came on board. You go through preseason and it's good and it's a jump and it's fast and it's everything. But when you get into the regular season and they talk about, the bullets are real now. They're not blanks. They're real players who want to win. That's the difference. And I had an NFL scout explain it to me one time. We're standing on the sideline in Green Bay and we're just chit-chatting. And he said, the difference between high school, college, and pro. In high school, everybody's driving in their neighborhood. They're driving, speed limit's 35. You get the guy that drives 45 and he stands out. But you're driving in the neighborhood. In college, everybody's driving on Interstate 90. Speed limit 65. You get your guy that goes 78 and he stands out. In the NFL, everybody is driving the Indy 500. And that is absolutely the truth. Everybody is driving 200 miles an hour. And it's hard to explain it if you don't see it and you don't know it. But when people say the biggest difference between the pros and anything else is the speed of the game, it's immense, the speed of the game. And when you get into the regular season and the best players in the world really want to win, the speed of the game is pretty frightening.
And you look at the difference between 1980s NFL and today's NFL. Speed, power, I mean, it's amazing.
Exactly. The size of the field stays the same, but the players haven't really gotten bigger in the last 25 years. You only get so big.
Right.
But the training and the quickness and the decision making, it's all just much faster right now.
Yeah. So how long did you spend with Green Bay?
I was there 5 years.
5 years.
1 training camp, correct.
Any special memories from those 5 years? I mean, just to be a pro is a great thing, but beyond that?
in 1986, I was a rookie in 84 and a rookie in 85, or second year player in 85. That was when I backed up Lynn Dickey, who was our starter.
Right.
In 86 was my first year as a starter. And we really transitioned. That was Forrest Gregg's third year. And that was when he really said, we're going to get rid of the old school. We're going to bring in some young players. We're going to struggle for a year or two, but we're going to get rid of the old mentality. So in 86, we had a young team. We were not great. The Bears were dominant at that time. The Vikings were very good at that time, and they were both in our division. But I started for the first year, for the first time, and I was one of only 6 quarterbacks in the NFL that year that started all 16 games. And that's one of the things that I am most proud of is, I could have played better, should have played better. We could have won more, should have won more. But to be one of only 6 quarterbacks in the NFL to start every game for your team in a season is, to me, is probably the thing I'm most proud of in my NFL career.
Especially since you did have kind of a history of injuries with the shoulder in high school, and I don't know what body part it was in college, but you did get hurt a little bit.
In college, I stayed fairly healthy to where I never missed any games. But the last game, second to last game, my rookie year, I tore my knee.
Oh.
So against Chicago down in Soldier Field, Richard Dent went into my left knee and tore the ligaments in my knee. So that was, game 15 of my rookie year. So my second year, I came back in July and had recovered by then and played and was our backup in 85. And then my third year was when I started.
Wasn't that the game where you kept playing with the injured knee?
For 2 plays.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And there was some controversy about that. But
yeah, there was a little bit.
We admired your courage, St. Charles pride. But he's a Hall of Famer, right? I mean, so, it's...
Hey, Pat, just a couple quick questions. One on, I'd like to ask Randy about the Green Bay experience. The Bears are big rivals here, and we got a lot of Bear fans down here. I'm not over the top one way or the other. And I had the opportunity to go to a Green Bay Packer game a couple of years ago. I got to tell you, fans, this is my opinion. I want you to react. Fans, so knowledgeable, so polite, very nice. You're parking in people's yards. It's something. So all I can say is, from my experience as a somewhat of a Bear fan, it was a wonderful experience. Your thoughts?
I hear that a lot, Ray. I experienced it when I was as a player. You experience it as a fan. Once since I've been gone for quite a while, you go back, and I still go to a game or two up in Green Bay. Maybe I'll probably go to a game a year, maybe every other year. But what I used to say when people would ask me, you guys struggled when you were playing. There was the pre-Favre era, and we had struggled a little bit during that time. And I used to say one of the huge differences between Green Bay and other places, we played in Cleveland, and I mean, they throw batteries at you. They put batteries in
the dog pound.
The dog pound. I mean, they throw batteries and rocks, marshmallows at you. In New York, they throw broken bottles at you. In Green Bay, you get booed. So you get booed, but it's never crosses the line like a lot of other stadiums do. And I think Green Bay's got fabulous fans, incredibly loyal. They take a lot of pride in what they have, and it's a really pretty good experience for fans alike.
And then the NFL season's upon us here, and I would be remiss if I didn't say, 2 of your successors, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, of course, done wonders up there. So now they're both, well, obviously Favre's gone, and now Rodgers is gone. Any thoughts about the Jordan Love era as it starts, and what do you see the Packers doing in the next year or two?
Yeah, I think the Jets will win more games this year than Green Bay will. I think Green Bay has got a better defense than offense this year. And it's been a long time since people have said that. I think they've said in the past they've got a good defense, but with Rodgers and Favre, you are always in every game. You are always going to win more than you lose, at least unless injuries took place. And they probably had those two quarterbacks are probably on my list of the top 5 all time to ever play. A big conversation up here, debate up here becomes who's better, Favre or Rodgers. And for a team like Green Bay in the last 35 years to have Favre start for 17 years and Rodgers start for 18 years, or 18 years as a career, 12, 13 years that he started after that,
Right.
is phenomenal to have that many that good. I think Love, I think he will be a good, solid quarterback. I don't expect him to be anywhere near what Favre or Rodgers have been, which isn't a knock on Love. I mean, you, like I said, you got what I think is 2 of your top 5 ever, but I think they're going to have to put more weapons around him. And I don't know if they have those weapons around him this year.
Pat?
We wanted to talk, Randy, a little bit about life after football. Obviously, at some point it ends for everybody, and it ended for you. And then you went into, I think, a family business, and we wanted to talk a little bit about your life after football. So go through that for us.
Absolutely. We my dream job all along was never really to play in the NFL. It was really to go into the FBI. And
I remember that.
I
yeah,
remember that too.
I went through that process. It's a long process, 2.5 years. We had started our own business, a vending coffee business. And as that was growing, the FBI stuff was going through. Long story short, I got the offer letter to go to the FBI and report to Quantico, Virginia in 1992. And the business was young. I had a 2.5-year-old and a 2-month-old, and it wasn't the best move for our family. So we passed on the bureau, continued to grow the business, ran the coffee vending business for 20 years, sold it in 2010. It was a very good business for our family. It gave us the control and the opportunity to live the kind of family life we wanted to. And that was all out of Madison, Wisconsin, where we lived for many years. So we sold that in 2010. It took about 3 or 4 or 5 years. Ran football camps for a part of that. We ran a couple in St. Charles, had some down in St. Charles, and mostly in the Midwest, and loved doing that. I also coached high school football for 4 years, something I'd always wanted to do. I very much enjoyed doing that, and started the broadcasting and, broadcast Badger radio for 3 years, and then went to ESPN and did that for 12. And then we got out of some of the hobby kind of jobs that I had done for 3 or 4 years, and got into another business, a transportation trucking company that our family now owns, that my son basically runs for us out of the Dane County area. And that's where we're at right now.
And
I just want to say, Pat, to Randy about his broadcasting career, I was a faithful watcher of most of the games that he was on in that 11-year period. Him and Wayne Larrabee, the voice of the Packers, were just a great tandem. And they brought those college football games on Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon to us. And I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of announcers in general. And I'll tell you, Randy, you were first class all the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate the comments. I love doing it. It was fun to do. You stayed involved with football. You were there, but you weren't really engaged with all the hours and all the time of like you were as a player. So it was all Big Ten games. So I got to go to the schools I played at and did a lot of Wisconsin games, but did a lot of Purdue games. I played in Ross-Ade Stadium, did a lot of Ohio State games, and you played there. So it was fun to do that. And as Larrabee would say, the best thing about being an announcer is you don't care who wins as long as it happens in about 2.5 hours.
That's right. That's right. Now he left Chicago, right? He went to the Packers, and that's the last time we talked to old Wayne. So for you, Randy, what's next? What do you see on the horizon? You're kind of retired. Your son's running the business mostly. What do you see for the future? You're going to write a book, do a podcast?
No.
What do you see?
No books. I'll let you guys handle all the media stuff, and I'll just jump on whenever you want to chat stuff. But I'm 62 right now and still involved about 25% with the business, but that's even declining a little bit as our son's doing more and more. Been married to my wife for 38 years, and we actually 2 or 3 years ago bought an RV, and we have been exploring and expanding that. We live out in Arizona about 7-8 months out of the year. So we have enjoyed being able to hop in the RV and just travel for 2-3 days or 4 or 5 days or 8 to 10 days. So I see that becoming a bigger part of our lives as long as we're healthy enough to be able to drive and go out and do that stuff.
Sure. A couple of things I did want to talk about just as it relates to your career and experience. What do you think about this NIL and the portal and all the things that are happening right now with college football?
Great question.
That is a great question, and I'm pretty opinionated on that. So right, wrong, or indifferent, my view, and it's somewhat based on lack of information because I don't have all the information, but I don't like a lot of it. I don't like the portal where kids can transfer without having to sit out. I transferred and had to sit out for the year, and it makes it worthwhile. Still have success, so you can still do it that way. I think there can be exceptions of when you let a player transfer and still be eligible right away, but I'm not a fan of that because I think it's too easy to recruit kids to go in and play and they give up. I absolutely can't stand the NIL, the way that it is set up right now. Here's what I would do. If I were king for the day with the NIL, I would make 2 changes. I would say the money that you get goes into a trust fund. You don't get the money right now. It goes into a trust. And the day you get your degree from that school, you get the money.
Very nice.
The second one is if you transfer from school A to school B and you earned money at school A, all that money goes back to that school. And then that school can pass it out to whomever they want, non-football athletes or non-income producing sports. Those 2 changes would make it much better, in my opinion. If you want to pay the kid for what he brings to the school, I get that. Other than the scholarship, which is what we had back in our day, was you were getting paid. You were just getting the scholarship. But put the money into a trust, and the day they get the degree, then they can get it. If they leave early, then to go in the NFL, then they don't need the money because
it seems to me as though it's not balanced, and therefore it's not fair because you, as the star quarterback from Wisconsin, might get more than the star right guard, and that's wrong to me. And then the quarterback is not going to go to Wisconsin; he's going to go to where the money is. He might go to Chicago Northwestern or whatever, where the money is. And so I think it should all go into a pool, and everybody gets an equal share of it on the team. That's the way it should be.
I think there are a lot of ways that it could be improved, but now, as your college coaches are saying, you're recruiting not only these high school kids, you're recruiting your own kids every year to stay at your school. And I get the concept, and I don't disagree with it. These kids need money now. They don't need it when they get out of school. And I get that. And you can give them a percentage. You can give them, X amount. There are ways you can improve it. But the way it is right now, I think it is contributing to the downfall of college football. And I don't say sports, but college football.
And you would also be happy to know that St. Charles now has a Packer bar.
Oh, they do?
Exclusively. So you would be a hero down there. You wouldn't drink. You wouldn't have to pay for a drink. It's Duke's.
Text me where it's at. Yeah, text me where it's at. I gotta go.
Oh, it's right downtown, right by the old State Bank there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's beautiful. We've had them on. So, well, we really appreciate you coming on, Randy, and we can't tell you how grateful we are for you giving your time to us to talk. We obviously emailed a few times beforehand, and we took some time getting it all arranged, and we appreciate everything. You've had a great career. You're the pride of the Fox. Outside of Ray, of course, you're the pride of the Fox, and we really appreciate spending time with you today.
I'll take second place to Ray anytime. That's a great compliment. It's great to see you guys. You've been in my life since I was 16 years old, and I appreciate the friendship and the relationship. And anytime, just let me know.
Sure.
You're a great guy, Randy. You're a great guy. I second Pat's comments. Appreciate all the time you've given us today.
You bet. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, friends. This is Ray Rogina. Hey, the Kane County Cougars are back for the summer. The best family entertainment around features sunshine, baseball, and fireworks through Labor Day. With great food, entertainment, giveaways, and running the bases after every game, there's something for everyone at a Cougars game. And Thirsty Thursdays feature $2 beer, pop, and hot dogs. And on Sunday, A $15 ticket gets you $15 right back in concession cash to spend at the ballpark. What a deal for you baseball foodies. Come visit us at beautiful Northwestern Medicine Field this summer for your dose of sunshine, baseball, and fireworks. And make your family memories today.
One. Oh, we're back, and Ray and I thought we would talk a little bit, even with Paul, the producer, about the upcoming football season and where we see it going. The Super Bowl obviously will be in February, and starting this Sunday, we will have football from this Sunday all the way till February. And boy, I'll tell you, the gamblers must love that. But for the pure football lovers like myself, what do you see, Ray, in terms of excellence? We'll start with the Bears. Do you have any hope for the Bears?
No, I do not. And I say that not as a strong Bear fan. Many people know that I grew up as a White Sox fan, which means I was a Cardinal fan in Chicago. So the Bears were always, I liked them, but the rivalry like Sox Cubs then, when the Cardinals moved to St. Louis, the Bears became at least a little more important in my life. So having said that, I tend to be fairly objective about the Bears and not go gaga one way or the other. Fields is coming along, but I really think the class of that division this year is the Lions. They're coming on strong. They've sold out every game at Ford Field this year, first time in forever. And Minnesota will be there because they were there last year. They've got basically the same personnel. And by the way, Pat, you're right. All of this is predicated on, no injury. A big injury knocks somebody out on any team. So we know that. So in that division, I think the Bears and the Packers are looking up. You heard what Randy said. As far as wins or losses, I'm not going to really comment. I don't think they get to a 500 record. I'll leave it at that.
Ooh.
That's the Bears. Paul,
Ooh.
I know I read your tome in Fox Valley magazine about the Bears and the Cubs, so I'm sure that you have some other views on that.
Well, the Cubs have got me riled up, obviously, because the Cubs came out of nowhere to sort of be a competitive team, which is nice to see.
Right.
And so I'm having the same sort of giddy emotions about the Bears, which is always very dangerous, which is why I don't gamble on football typically. Because I'd be broke at this point.
Except for that big bet you laid last year, if I recall correctly.
Oh my God, it was the bet of the year. It was the bet of the century.
All right, I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I bet against just so the listeners know, I bet against the Packers against the 49ers in the the championship game. Was that last year or the year before? I don't remember.
It was the year before, and that snow up there.
Yeah.
And I thought that was I think even though it's a family show, it was a very ballsy move on your part.
Yeah, well, I was voting against the grain. I'm a contrarian by nature, and then that one, and I just knew it. I knew that Rodgers would choke. Anyway,
see, there's bias.
I enjoy saying that. I do enjoy saying that. No. In all honesty, I think the Bears are going to be a lot better this year. A lot better this year. I think they're going to be above 500 as long as predicated on Fields being injury free. If Fields is injury free, I think the Bears have an enormous, because I think DJ Moore is actually more important than Fields. To my mind, he's going to be the best player on the field, and I think he's going to open a lot of eyes because he was really, really good with a terrible quarterback in where was he? Jacksonville. I mean, He was awful. Oh no, it was Carolina. I can't remember that. It was Carolina.
Right. We did the trade for the draft choices.
Yeah. And so I think he's going to be a big, and I think I'm optimistic about the defense. So I'm going to say the Lions and the Bears are going to be the ones fighting it out for the kind of division championship. Not Minnesota. I'm not going to pick between the Lions and Bears, but not Minnesota.
I back in the day, we used to live in Michigan. I remember
Gerald Ford was your representative.
Gerald Ford was my congressman. We met Alex Karras. We went to a Lions game, and we sat right behind a huge steel pillar. The thanks to
at Tiger Stadium.
Alex Karras. Yeah, it was the old stadium. But and of course we had the Thanksgiving Day history or tradition or whatever it was. Very nice up there. And but I don't see the Lions at the end of the day dominating, but I do see them winning this division. The Bears defense, I agree with Paul, I think is going to be much improved. And I think the what's the name of the GM for the Bears? Pools. What's his name?
Don't ask me.
Yeah, it's poll. I think it's polls.
Polls, yes. I violated the rule, right? I asked.
Yes, you did, Pat. Yes, you did.
But I think that he understands that as well, that Chicago is a defense town. And so I think he started to prioritize that a little bit. I hear Fields is very inconsistent so far in training camp. Of course, it's early, but he's still overthrowing people. He's still underthrowing people. So, yeah, I think Paul's right. Because he runs so much, he's so vulnerable to getting hurt that's that's hard to put money on the Bears, I think. So, yeah, I would go with the Lions. I don't know where the Vikings are necessarily. And of course, I don't think the Packers are going to do anything. So, what about the actual? We could talk Super Bowl, I guess.
Yeah, let's just talk about the rest of the league and just throw each one of us throw some thoughts out about teams we like, we don't like, etc. Maybe some teams that'll surface. I'll get it started with this. The Chiefs obviously are the favorite. We know that, but I don't believe in my heart that they'll make it to the Super Bowl this year. In fact, I'm riding that train again this year out of the great Northeast, the snow-laden Northeast. And I just think the Buffalo Bills have something to prove this year with Allen. They fell short in that game against Cincinnati last year. And don't discount Burrows and the Bengals, because they'll be right there as well. But I just think Buffalo and Cincinnati somehow, some way will sneak past the Chiefs in the AFC. Now, one more team, though, in the AFC that, to Paul's point about a gutsy, ballsy, long shot bet, take a look at that Jacksonville team. They made some noise last year. That Lawrence is just getting better, and I like him a lot. So I'll throw Jacksonville out as another team to watch. In the NFC, you like to think Philadelphia is going to repeat, but I'll tell you something. They have the toughest schedule in football. When you finish first, you get a tough schedule. So they're going to be facing a lot of good teams. Look at the Philly schedule and ask yourself, can they survive? And I'm thinking that the other two teams in that division or that conference that'll rise to the top will be San Francisco. They have a solid team. And you want to say Dallas, but I think they have a lousy coach in McCarthy. I mean, the Packers, I'm sure they were happy they got rid of him. He can't coach a big game to save his life. So forget Dallas, even though they got the great quarterback in Prescott. And so I'm going to say San Francisco, although Philly, boy, that's a solid team. That's a solid team. Those are my thoughts. Just I'm not going to pick a champion. I'm just saying those are the teams. Well, I'm pulling for Buffalo. Let's put it that way.
We always pull for Buffalo because they've lost so many times, but
they haven't had a championship in 117 seasons.
As everyone knows, I believe, who's been listening to the podcast knows I'm a Raider fan. And I think the Raiders have gotten better, and I do have high expectations for them, but I certainly don't see them in the league of the Bengals or the Buffalo Bills or the Chiefs at this point. That AFC West, though, I'll tell you, with the Chiefs and the Raiders, we have a new and improved Denver Broncos, I think, with a much better coach with Sean Payton. And, of course, the Chargers are very good and very dangerous. So I believe talent and a team that could challenge will come out of the AFC West, whoever that might be, but it'll be one of those four teams. I also like the Jets and the Dolphins. I think the Chiefs will be surpassed by one of those two teams. So I really think that we're talking about the Jets, Dolphins, Chiefs, and either the Bills or the Bengals here. And of course, I like the Eagles. The Eagles got better. And when you say tough schedule, I don't know if the schedule based on last year's teams and schedules or records, I don't know if that means as much as it used to, because the dynamic is so fluid. But I like the Eagles. They got better and they're scary. And I do like the 49ers. I like their GM. I think they do put together a good team every year.
Right.
So Eagles or 49ers in the NFC, Jets, Dolphins, or Chiefs in the AFC, and always watch my Raiders. Paul, where you at?
Oh yeah. When I'm selling two of those teams short. I'm selling Philly short, and I'm selling Jets short. Jets because of Rodgers, choke central, and then don't know, it'll never go away, right? And Philly, or also known as Georgia North, is they do have a tough schedule. I'm still not as sold on them as everyone else is. Now, of course, they made the Super Bowl last year, so what do I know? I'm just not sure they're going to keep it up, to be honest with you. Again, no, you can't really go wrong with Kansas City, Cincy, or Buffalo. I'm with you in my heart. I'm praying for Buffalo, just because of the underdog thing, and they're upstate New York. I mean, come on, anyone, so they can brag against the city all they want. That'd be a beautiful thing. And I don't know. I'm really, in the NFC. I'm really struggling to find a real clear winner.
It's tough.
It's tough. I mean, it's a kind of a grab bag, and I have no faith in Dallas, zero, for the same reason you do, Ray. McCarthy couldn't coach his way out of a paper bag, and San Francisco, yeah. I mean, well coached team, but they always seem to become up a little bit short. Who else are you looking at? I don't think. I mean, Detroit may win the division, but I don't think they're going to do anything more than that. I don't know. I'm probably missing somebody, but I guess by default I'd have to go to Philly because I just don't know. I feel comfortable though that the AFC is going to win the Super Bowl. Any of those three teams are better than anybody in the AFC, as far as I'm concerned.
My only admonition to all of our listeners is good luck with your bets. Be careful, because you know that the house has got the edge at all times. But good luck with your wagers, and may you make a ton of money.
And Ray, if I may, you don't have to gamble.
Of course not.
You don't have to fall for this. As much as they pound it into you. Now we have ESPN Bet. You don't have to do this.
I agree, and I'm not going to do that, but I will guarantee you that I will get into one of my favorite small little pools called a survivor pool. I love those, and you pick a winner every week, and when they blow up, you get knocked out. Although mine is double elimination, so I get to go down the tubes twice. But yes. I like that one, so I will play in a survivor pool for sure.
Well, regardless, we all love football, and Paul can save this podcast and play it after the Super Bowl in February, and kind of show everybody who was right and who was wrong.
And all I'm going to say is, no way we're talking about pro football, but I'm pulling hard for the Illini to win the last time, probably the Big Ten West, and maybe get into a championship game this year. But they've got 4 tough games. They're what I call trap games on the schedule, and that will prove whether or not they'll be making noise in November and December. So anyway, all right. But Pat, thanks for the organization today on our special guest. Since you're a classmate of his, I thought it went very well.
Well, it was a great podcast for our crack staff. Paul Stukel, our producer, my co-host and good friend and former teacher, Ray Rogina. And for everyone involved in the podcast, it was a great show. The class of 79 comes out strong here. Everybody's looking good. Ken Mitchell still looks good. Randy Wright still looks good. I think the class of 79 probably the premier class of the St. Charles High School tenure, as it were. We're looking forward to the future. Ray, I know you're going to Ireland to see Notre Dame. That'll be exciting. Pat's going to go to the Jiffy Lube in downtown Geneva for to put air in his tires. So we're very excited about all that.
The Colombo Mobile. The Colombo
Mobile still is riding, by the way. So for everybody here, we thank you for listening. It's back, it's back to school season. So watch out when you're pulling out of the driveway or driving down the street. Kids are everywhere. So be careful with that. And of course, I'll miss my daughter going back to Nebraska. Go Huskers.
Good luck, right. Nora.
Take care, everybody, and thank you very much.
And the pinpoint passing of Randy Wright dismantled one of the best secondaries in pro football.
Wright back to pass. Across the middle, complete to John Jefferson.
This time, has time. Phillips has the football at the 35.